So, friend, is it time that we rethink this whole 8-hour workday thing?
Well, we'll take on that subject next on Men Are So Smart.
Welcome to the show. Americans certainly aren't strangers to working long hours. In fact, 40% of U.S. employees regularly put in over 50 hours of work per week, while 20% top the 60-hour mark. But even if we choose to consider these numbers extreme, the reality is that most employees are expected to adhere to the standard 8-hour workday.
And when you think about it, 40 hours a week sounds a lot more reasonable and doable than, say, 50 or even 60 hours per week. But depending on the nature of your work, putting in an 8-hour day may not end up being all that productive, especially on a consistent week-to-week basis.
So we ask the question, should you be working an 8-hour day every day? In the U.S., working 8 hours or more per day has unquestionably become the norm. But many of history's most brilliant and creative figures were known to spend just a few hours each day doing their most important work. Think Darwin, Dickens, and a host of personalities who could easily command their own Jeopardy category.
And it's not just the famous scientists, authors, and artists of the past who've conformed to the less is more theory. In a survey conducted in the 50s, scientists who spent 25 hours per week were no more productive than those who spent only 5. Not only that, but scientists who worked 35 hours a week were half as productive as those who put in 20 hours a week. A similar pattern, in fact, observed among violin students who were subject to a study in the 1980s.
So what's the takeaway? According to an author, 4 hours is actually the optimal amount of time to spend per day if your work is creative in nature or requires a notable degree of thinking and concentration. So, in other words, if you work on an assembly line, you'll most likely maintain your productivity during an 8-hour shift. But if your job requires imagination, ingenuity, and above-average mental focus, you may be better off limiting that work to 4 hours per day as opposed to 8 or more.
So let's think about making better use of our time. Now, this isn't to say that all creative or scientific professionals ought to work for 4 hours and then go home and call it a day. But your findings teach us that there might be a better way to go about organizing our days. For example, most of us have what we call busy work as part of our responsibilities. Architects, for example, don't necessarily come home to work and hammer out drawings all day. They're often required to attend meetings, answer emails, compose updates. So if you're an architect, your takeaway here is that you may be better off limiting your hardcore architectural work to 4 hours a day and spending your remaining hours on tasks that are less mentally taxing, like filing paperwork or clearing out your email inbox.
Boy, we spend a lot of time doing that.
Yeah.
All right, so here's another strategy to consider. Many of us spend a significant chunk of our time in meetings, which often have a negative connotation in the context of the workday. But if you schedule your meetings strategically, they might serve as the mental break you need to be more efficient at the challenging tasks. So if, for example, you're a copywriter who can only hammer out so much content without regressing into brain mush mode, arrange your schedule so that you're typing away for 2 hours, then have a 90-minute break in the form of a team meeting.
Remember, though, 4 hours might be the ideal amount of time to focus every day on your key responsibilities. You don't necessarily want to do the same thing for 4 hours in a row. Quite the contrary, giving your brain some time off is essential to your ultimate success. The only downside here is it's unlikely that corporate America will soon change its ways and embrace the 4-hour workday. But in the meantime, what the rest of us can do is express and acknowledge our mental limitations and then plan our work days around them. What about your job? How many hours do you put in at your job a day?
8.
8 hours. In the sheriff's department, you're working patrol, you work 4 10-hour days with 3 days off in between, 3 days in a row. I've worked jobs before, worked 8-hour days, and had split days off.
That's rough.
It is rough, but you know what? This was back when I was working at the auto parts store. and we were busy, super busy. And so to put in 3 days, have a day off, work 2 days, have a day off, it was a nice way to recharge your batteries. Being young, you're pretty resilient, but it still was refreshing to, have a break in between, especially this particular store. The first one I worked at didn't have a very good functioning air conditioning.
Oh, boy.
And so in the summertime, it was kind of brutal. And once I spent a little time with the company, I ended up with 2 days in a row off, still not on the weekend. Had one weekend day, but not the other one. And they were still 8-hour days, and you just couldn't wait for Friday to come around. For the sheriff's department, working 10-hour days in patrol, there's a method to their madness because there's some overlap built in there. And they tend to run the overlap during times which are notoriously busy for calls for service.
Mm-hmm.
So it works out pretty well.
Well, I don't think we're going to see it anytime soon.
I don't think so either.
I'll be honest with you. When you get to this age, it would be nice if you worked 4 hours and then got paid for 8.
Yeah.
Is there a way we can do that?
Yeah. Well, we need to start a letter writing campaign.
Yeah. I mean, before you hit Social Security age, there should be a little segment of time that allows you to work 4 hours a day.
Absolutely.
I have a desk and I get up and down all day long as customers come into the store, and that along with my knees and my lower back problems, just standing for 8 hours a day can really be rough.
Yeah.
And as you were mentioning, when you're young, you bounce back so much quicker.
Yep.
When you're young, 33-pound package is nothing to haul out to the parking lot.
Right.
When you get to be this age, you use a cart.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, a great suggestion. Looks good on paper. Probably not going to work in execution, but we thought we'd bring it to you as something to think about.
Not in our lifetime.
No, I don't think so.
Unless the millennials take over. Working 4 hours a day would be a lot for them.
Well, it would be them working 4 hours and us working 8 or 10 hours. That's what it would be.
Yep.
You can do the work. All right, that brings us to the conclusion of another grueling 9-minute workday.
Woo, I'm done.
I need a nap. Damn. I need a big nap right about now and a bowl of some Frosted Flakes. If you'd like some more information on this article, you can find it below with all links to various things that we've spoken about. Also, you'll find the ways to reach us via our social media, and we're on all of them: Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat, and you'll find us there with our postings. We appreciate you watching the show. We appreciate you. And don't forget, from time to time, it's great to go back and look at some of the previous episodes of the show. Like the day we were on the boat. Remember that one?
I do remember that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, very fun.
Let's see, what's the other one I like?
Cars and Coffee.
Another popular episode.
Yeah.
So check them out. That's what they're there for. There are 3 pages, and we are over 100 episodes on our channel. Look for the show Men Are So Smart. We'll see you next time right here.